Thank you very much, Supervisors. Good morning or good afternoon. I know there's a lot of people who have been waiting, so I will be brief. The Public Defender's Office provides representation to indigent individuals, poor people who can't afford an attorney. We provide representation to about 25,000 people a year. Our job is to uphold the Constitution, to ensure that if there is a constitutional violation of law, that constitutional violation is raised in court. And we normally do that through a motion. And for example, if a person was stopped without good reason or what the law calls probable cause, we would then file a motion objecting to that. Another part of what public defenders do is that we challenge the constitutionality of laws. And so I thought it would be helpful today for me to review with you what I believe some of the potential constitutional challenges would be to the ordinance that is being proposed. Now, one of the things that we look at in challenging a constitutional or raising a constitutional challenge to a crime is whether or not the crime would treat all people equally. And it doesn't mean that everyone's going to be treated, 100% equally under the law, but it has to be the kind of law that would criminalize the same type of behavior no matter who committed the crime and regardless of the circumstances, unless there's some exception under the law. Similarly, it's important that the law be understandable to the police officer, so the police officer understands and knows what conduct is prohibited. And so it does not give the officer too much discretion. The officer always has some discretion, but too much discretion to determine who is in violation and who is not. Now, looking at this first photograph, this would be a clear violation of the statute. You have an individual who's depicted there, forgetting for the moment that he has a cup in his hand. He has his belongings. It's hard to tell how close they are to him, but he is sitting. And that in and of itself would constitute a violation of the statute. Now, there's a separate violation involving panhandling, which is not necessarily evident from the picture. He could be holding a cup of coffee, but certainly that could be one interpretation. The next photograph of a young woman who's sitting on her luggage, we could make different assumptions about what she's doing, whether or not she's waiting for a cab or waiting for some friends or perhaps is lost. But this person as well would be in violation of the statute because she is sitting, it appears to be on a public sidewalk. She's probably within 2 feet of her belongings, so she's not in violation of that section. Next, we have 2 individuals who are, again, on a public sidewalk. They appear to be sitting on an object. And these 2 individuals would clearly be in violation of the statute because they are sitting on a public sidewalk. And here we have a young boy with a skateboard. He would also be in violation of the statute because he's sitting on the sidewalk. And so irrespective of your purpose, whether or not you're sitting there just to shoot the breeze with a friend, to engage in criminal activity, although you haven't yet, or sit there with a skateboard, you would be equally liable under the statute. We have here 2 individuals who are sitting on the street. These 2 individuals clearly would be in violation of the statute. This picture is actually not from the United States, it's from Cuba. This picture here also shows 3 people. Again, the assumption I made when I saw this is they were sightseeing, they were looking at something, and they were sitting down while they were doing that. But these 3 individuals would also be in violation of the statute. Here we have what appears to be a mother and a child or a young child, and they're sitting down in the street, these two individuals obviously would be in violation of the statute because the child is lying and the mother is sitting. This is a picture also of what appears to be a mother and her child. They're sitting on the street. At least part of their bodies are touching the street, and they could be in violation of the statute. It's not quite clear whether they're on the street or perhaps they're sitting on a stoop. We have an individual here who is holding a sign. It says, "Help Save Brittany." So it's not a violation of the panhandling statute necessarily, but it would be a violation of the sit-lie law because he is protruding onto a public street. And here we have two students who, again, are sitting down on the ground. If this was on a public street, they would be in violation of the statute as well. Here we have an individual who's seated on the side of a sidewalk, appears to be reading a newspaper, and he would be in violation. Here we have a protester, and under the exemption of one of the exceptions of the current proposal, this person would not be an observer, because you can observe a political protest. Here she is actually engaging in a political protest, and therefore, because she's seated, she would be in violation of the statute.
But what about First Amendment rights?
Well, she'd be able to raise that at trial. Certainly, if I were her lawyer, I would raise that defense, but she would be liable for arrest under the statute. I did go out on Hate Street yesterday because I was interested in seeing what other kinds of activity would be prohibited. Here we have an individual who's playing a guitar in the corner. He's sitting. That would be a violation. A person playing the flute, that would be a violation. This would not be a violation because this group of 5 musicians are standing up and performing. A person who is sitting down on the sidewalk, however, would be subject to a violation. This is hard to see, but I did bring copies for you. What this shows are all of the other crimes that are currently on the book. And they include solicitation, which is what you asked about earlier, Supervisor, relating to begging, illegal begging. That's Municipal Police Code 120.2. Obstructing the sidewalk, which is Municipal Police Code 22. I know there's been some testimony earlier about that. Penal Code Section 415, disturbing the peace. Penal Code Section 602.1, obstructing a business, and that is physically obstructing a business as the business is open to the public. Illegal parking, which is Park Code 3.12, obstructing the sidewalk, 647C, and that is a penal code violation. So there's actually 2 crimes as it relates to obstructing the sidewalk. 647C and 647F of the Penal Code, disorderly conduct. Also 332, which is not on this chart, which is public nuisance. That is being in a large group, creating noise, creating a continuing course of conduct that interrupts the enjoyment of the space to the community. 653.22 of the Penal Code, this is loitering with the intent to either buy or sell drugs. And then there's the Health and Safety Code 11550, which is being under the influence of drugs. And you can see that these are all misdemeanors, and these are all violations of law.